Picture yourself in the following circumstance. You take the last bus home from work. Now, as you step off the bus and you're working toward your house, up underneath a street light, you see a very troubling situation. You see a woman lying on the street curb crying. You see children huddled over her, and they're crying. And as you're rushing to this, into the alleyway, you see a shadow slipping. Now, from the concept of protocol and what's expected of you of being a neighbor in this community, when you come up to this situation, who do you deal with first? Who's the first person you attend to? The woman lying on the street. In this case, the victim who has suffered the harm, you check her. Now, let's say she's been knocked down, but she apparently doesn't have suffered any contusions. Who are you thinking about next? The children around the victim. If you would, that's the community around this particular victim. And clearly they're distraught that their mother's been knocked down, but don't appear to they've suffered other physical harm. Now who are you thinking about? Who are we going to deal with next? The guy that did the harm, right? So this, if you would, when the incident of crime occurs, from a sense of community protocol, we attend to the needs of the victim, we check the pulse of the community around the victim, and within that context, we're going to do something about the offender. And I think I've asked this question all over our country. It's uniform. When a crime occurs, first you deal with the victim, you deal with the community around the victim, and then you deal with the offender. Now let me ask you this. From a standpoint of how we're viewed in the criminal justice system, who do we deal with first? The offender, huh? Who's our customer? Who do we deal with second? You know what a lot of people have told me? The offender. Who do we deal with third? The offender. You know, that I think one of the reasons that we're in trouble with our public is our response to crime violates that basic sense of attending to the victim's needs first. Within that, the community, and then within that context, what are we going to do with the offender that's responsible for this? So as long as we're in that violation of protocol, I don't think we're going to enjoy a relationship with our public. That's question A to kind of frame what I think one of the things restorative justice is about is it talks about a protocol. First you deal with the harm. You deal with the harm and how does it affect the community? And then what's the offender's responsibility for being involved in that harm with both the victim and the community? Now let me ask you something else. And I don't want any of you to incriminate yourselves. But when you were younger, if you had a youthful indiscretion, right? Let's say you walked down to the corner store and you took something that didn't belong to you and you got caught. Who did we call? Who got called? Did we call 911? Huh? We called your mother, right? And what did your mother do? What's the first thing your mother did with you? How? Like this? Right? Back to the store owner, right? Now, were you standing in the presence of the store owner? And what was the first thing that was expected of you? Apologize, right? And what if that apology wasn't very sincere or genuine, right? Huh? You were going to get Mom was going to get a genuine apology out of you. So you extended an apology for the wrongdoing. Now, what was expected of you after that, though? Once you made a promise, once you made an apology, what were you expected to do next? Promise to pay back. First you took responsibility, then you promised to pay back. But before you left the presence of the store owner, what was the last promise you had to make? I will never do it again. Now, you know what? Just what you went through, I think you did a lot of our work for us today. Because in terms of dealing with the offender, that's a lot about what restorative justice is about. It's about taking responsibility, it's about paying back, and it's about promising not to do it again. Promising to be a trustworthy person that could come in that store. That's what this is about. So one of the things we find out about restorative justice is you travel the world, that's people's sense of justice. So some folks have said, well, is this a new trend? It's not a new trend. The phrase that I like, and I don't know who offered it first, Barry, was, it's an ancient idea whose time has come.